Tragically and totally unnecessarily, what we are seeing in real time is an assault on the veterans of America. It's an assault that is part of a campaign by Elon Musk, who's been empowered by President Trump supposedly to eliminate waste in our federal government. Instead of eliminating waste, Elon Musk is laying waste to the Department of Veterans Affairs. And it is unfolding in real time with real-life impacts on our veterans. Not only is he firing veterans at the VA, many of the 2,400 already terminated are veterans, 1/3 of them, but across agencies in the United States government, where 30,000 members of the federal workforce have been indiscriminately terminated. 30% of them are veterans as well. Almost 50% of everybody in the Department of Defense who has been fired, they're veterans. And they may be probationary employees, promoted to a position where they are in probationary status because they've done such a great job. They're being fired. Younger members of the federal workforce, there for up to 2 years. The future of our civil service, they're fired. And so many of them are veterans who have worn the uniform, served and sacrificed, and want to continue to benefit the country with the skills and dedication that they've demonstrated as members of our United States Armed Forces. Public service has long been a preferred path for military-affiliated populations, whether it's in our local police force or as emergency medical personnel. Joining the federal workforce has enabled them to continue serving our country while offering competitive wages, benefits, and much-needed stability for them as veterans, and tremendous benefits for taxpayers. And now, what Elon Musk is doing, relying on his tech bros and his algorithms and his AI formulas, is to cut across the board, leaving those veterans as disposable trash or roadkill in his campaign to eliminate waste. Well, let me tell you, Elon Musk, if you were serious about eliminating waste, you wouldn't have fired the inspectors general of these agencies, who are the watchdogs. They have records of eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. Exhibit A, Michael Missel, the Inspector General of the VA, hired and appointed first by President Obama. He served under President Trump for 4 years, then under President Biden. He has ruffled feathers of Republican and Democratic administrations because he's uncovered waste and fraud in a very bipartisan way, and he regards his job as bipartisan. He would be the one to eliminate waste, not with a meat axe, but with a scalpel. I wish my colleagues had been in the hearing today, joint hearing of the House and Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, to hear Commander Al Lippert of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, a really heroic Vietnam veteran, injured there, shrapnel in his arm, and as he told us, the surgeon removed the shrapnel piece by piece, didn't cut off his arm. That's the approach that we need, as he said, in eliminating waste. Not cutting off arms or legs, but removing the waste carefully, deliberately, cautiously. Among the illegally terminated, and I should stress illegally terminated, 2,400 VA employees, many of them veterans themselves, members of the Guard or Reserves now, caregivers, military spouses, in the DOD, many of them, 45%, former veterans. And the overall impact will be disastrous on the 640,000 veterans who are public service. Musk and Trump have already upended the lives of so many. The thousands of veterans casually discarded, illegally fired without notice or justification, all for cheap headlines. The impacts in real life are undeniable, and stories from newspapers, from broadcast media, from all kinds of outlets tell the story of those real-life impacts. But I know my colleagues are hearing from their constituents about the mental health services that are delayed, about the surgeries that can't be provided, about the Veterans Crisis Line, serving veterans who may be taking their own lives, all reduced. These real-life impacts are undeniable, and we're talking about the people who make sure that veterans have transportation to those appointments, who assist with benefits claims, who ensure that the VA hospitals are maintained and that they are safe, who clean operating rooms and sterilize instruments in between procedures. It may not be the surgeon who's fired, but the surgeon walking into the operating room needs a staff and a team to assist him, needs the housekeeping staff to make sure that it's clean. These people have dedicated their careers to serving veterans and their nation, and all have been indiscriminately and illegally terminated. These short headlines tell a story, and so does this visual from Springfield, Massachusetts. Due to abrupt and unplanned staff shortages, we are not able to greet you at this time. If you have a scheduled appointment, your counselor will be out to get you in time of your appointment. You are here. If you are here for any other reason, please call and leave a message, and a staff member will return your call. We apologize. We apologize for any inconvenience and impact on your care. Donald Trump and Elon Musk owe veterans an apology. Right now, Elon Musk is giving veterans the middle finger. Veterans won't stand for it. And so, Mr. President, I'm introducing a resolution today and asking that we approve it, to uphold the contract, to uphold the promise, to uphold the commitment we make to our veterans when they raise their right hand and promise to serve and sacrifice, even at the risk of dying. I'm joined by Senators Hirono, Slotkin, Lujan, Murray, Durbin, Whitehouse, Warnock, Klobuchar, Shaheen, Kane, Rosen, Cortez, Masto, also Brooks, Kelly, Warren, Hassan, Schiff, Baldwin, Duckworth, Gallego, Peters, Van Hollen, Sanders, Booker, Wyden, Merkley, Warner, Smith, Padilla, Heinrich, Schatz, and Hickenlooper in this effort. I really wish it were bipartisan, because veterans' issues have been bipartisan. I've worked with veterans, including the chairman, whom I respect, Senator Moran, on these issues. This resolution acknowledges that veterans who make up less than 7% of Americans, but approximately 30% of public service, have been really disrespected and disserved in just these weeks, with such destructive and repugnant effect on them, on veterans they serve, and on American values. Our nation and they deserve better. And So I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of S-Res 105, which is at the desk. Further, that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President,
The senator from Kansas.
reserving the right to object. In my conversations with Kansans, I frequently point to the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs as proof that we can still work together, that unity is attainable, and that we are able to set aside our partisan differences and frustrations to find a way to work together to put our nation's veterans first, because they did that for us when they put on the uniform and took a vow to defend and protect our country. The Senate has to work together with the administration, with the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, veteran service organizations, and the broad veteran community across the country. This resolution divides the Congress and the administration and makes it more difficult for us to find consensus. We should work together. We should work together to determine what is the right kind of workforce at the VA, a workforce that enables the department to better care for veterans. Approving this resolution drives a wedge between this body, this Senate, this Congress, and the executive branch, and I don't see how that helps veterans. Additionally, this resolution was designed to lock in at the VA the status quo as of January the 19th. I don't know if any of my colleagues believe that the VA was doing everything just right prior to this administration. I commit today to all my colleagues to work with them to make certain the VA retains an effective workforce that can deliver our promises to veterans. But we will only achieve that by working together and working with the Department of Veterans Affairs to find the desirable outcomes. We need more information, and we need to be working together to achieve that. Mr. President, therefore, I object.
The objection is heard. The senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, first let me say I am hopeful that we can work together. If the chairman of the VA committee is willing to do it, to try to arrive at language that calls for the rehiring of these veterans, rescinding the layoffs. And I must say, we're joined today by a number of guests of my colleagues, as well as myself, veterans who have been terminated. They're with us today. They're going to be with us tonight at the address offered by President Trump. I am more than happy to work on this resolution if there is a way to make it bipartisan. But the basic principle that we owe our veterans that contract and commitment, and that we need to bring them back so that these kinds of consequences can be avoided, I think is fundamental to the effort today. Because we know more than 50 patient appointments were canceled at a VA facility just this past week because they can't hire staff needed to care for those veterans. We know that in the first round of terminations, Secretary Collins terminated 9 Veterans Crisis Line employees, then he hired some back, then he fired more. And we know a pregnant spouse of a disabled veteran who was hired under the Military Spouse Appointing Authority was terminated. We know a 25-year Marine Corps veteran with a 100% service-connected disability rating and 15 years of service was terminated. We know a VA researcher working on treatments for substance use disorders among veterans was terminated. We know the cybersecurity lead for the VA website, the digital hub that connects veterans with their benefits and holds sensitive personal data, was terminated. These kinds of impacts, and I've mentioned just a tiny fraction of all of them, are ongoing, they're real, they're urgent. And I'm more than happy to work on the language of this resolution, but the goal is indisputable and unavoidable. I'm going to turn now to some of my colleagues who have join me today. I thank them for doing so. First, Senator Whitehouse, if I may yield to him, Mr. President.
The senator from